Hello everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and we're now going to continue with the best episodes, and this will be part 3, the concluding part of my breakdown of the best episodes of Smallville. You can catch parts 1 and 2 on the playlist within my channel called The Best Episodes. I will put the links in the description. And as with both of those videos, I will warn you now that I will be including spoilers when I talk about these episodes. So if you haven't seen all of the episodes of Smallville, then I would advise you to catch up with the episodes and come back and watch this breakdown. Of course, if you don't mind being spoilt, then of course stay tuned to this video. And also hit those like and subscribe buttons and help me to grow this channel in the long run. We're continuing to grow successfully now, so your help and support is always appreciated. So with now that out of the way, we're going to continue now with our final breakdown of the best episodes of Smallville. The first episode we will be concentrating on is Tempest, and this is from season 1, episode 21, and this is the finale of the first season, which I think overall was very strong. And this is concerning the mini arc of a reporter investigating Clark, looking into his future. He was originally, of course, sent by Lex to investigate what was going on with Clark, and we open up with a scene where we see Lionel coming up to the Luthor Corp plant, addressing the employees, informing them that he's shutting down the Luthor Corp plant in Smallville. This of course affects Lex's position and reputation, and this causes a further rift between the two. The other subplot, of course, is that we have Clark taking Chloe to the prom. Chloe, as we all know, is developing strong feelings for Clark, and this is her chance to really develop things further with him. And we also see that Whitney has decided to enlist into the army, so we get a bit of an emotional separation between him and Lana. So we get various developments throughout this episode, all of which comes to a massive climax when we get the warning that there'll be several tornadoes coming towards Smallville, so everybody is in preparation now to evacuate as quickly as possible. And as the tension, as the events escalate, we get further developments into the previous arc. So we then see Lex and Lionel in a massive conflict within his mansion, and as the tornadoes hit, we see Lionel getting trapped within the mansion, and Lex has a crisis of conscience whether to save his father or not. We see Jonathan fighting off the reporter later on because he's threatening to expose Clark, so we get a great scene between those two. And then we also get that great ending where we see Clark sensing that Lana is in danger, and we see Lana getting trapped in the tornadoes. Very good visual effects at the time for Smallville. And then she's screaming out for Clark as he sees him in the distance, and then Clark speeds towards her, and that's then we end for the season 1. So that was a great finale. It's a great cliffhanger and a thrilling season 1 finale for a very strong first season of the show. We go on to the next episode, and that is Vortex, and this is season 2, episode 1, and this is the season 2 premiere, continuing off from the relentless, exciting cliffhangers that I mentioned from Tempest, the season 1 premiere. And here now we see the conclusions of the dangling arcs that we were left with in that season 1 premiere, where we see Lex finally rescuing Lionel from being trapped. We see Clark, of course, rescuing Lana as she trapped in the van in the tornado, and this will be something that they would carry on throughout the season when Lana becomes more curious about Clark, and this is when Clark has to really start lying to her in the future, and this would cause further divisions to them in their relationship. We also see the developments of Jonathan Kent and Nixon, where they're trapped in the underground following the effects of the tornadoes, and we get a great scene between the two as the discussions as to why Clark's powers should be disclosed to the world and the potential that he could bring, and the fact that Nixon states that if he had Clark's powers, what he would do to the world. And then we get the climatic at the end where Nixon escapes and he's going to strike Jonathan down, but he's saved by Lex, who shoots him. And again, this builds good relations between Lex and Jonathan in the short term overall. So a great opening episode for a strong season, and what I believe was one of the strongest seasons of the entire series. We go on to the next episode, and that is Exodus, and that is season 2, episode 23. And this is a very much of an emotionally charged finale for this season, as Clark is constantly finding himself now tormented by the constant calling from the ship that we've established throughout this season, is that Jor-El is now starting to make connections with Clark, giving him these messages about his destiny and that he was sent to conquer. And this is really devastating for Clark because his life is coming together now. He's with Lana, he's very happy in life, and he feels now it's all falling apart. So he has to make the decision to decide to destroy the ship. We also get the subplot, of course, that Lex is getting married, and we think initially that everything is going great for Lex, of course, but we'll find out later on that that is not the case. So following Clark's major decision, he decides to destroy the ship, and it has huge ramifications. There's a massive explosion. Jonathan and Martha are on the way to the farm because they hear of Clark's intentions, or they sense what he intends to do. They get caught up in the explosion, and unfortunately the devastating result of this is that Martha ends up losing the baby that her and Jonathan were due to have. And when Clark receives this news, it's a hugely heartbreaking revelation for him. Great acting by both Jonathan Snyder and Tom Welling when we see that Jonathan reveals to Clark what has happened. Clark feels very guilty and disillusioned, so he goes away and finds the red kryptonite ring that was established way back, I believe, in episode 4. And we all know that red kryptonite has a very much of a more impulsive effect on Clark, and he takes the ring and we get a final separation between him and Lana, and then he drives off into the distance. So this really was a fantastic finale, and it showed once again that as well as providing action and special effects, Smallville really at heart was an emotional series with great character development and interaction. And of course that final shot when Clark is driving into the distance got you very intrigued for season 3. So a great finale overall for season 2. We go on to the next episode, and that is Exile, and this is from season 3 episode 1, and this is an amazing season premiere for the 3rd season, continuing where we left off from the end of season 2 when Clark is driving off under the influence of the red kryptonite, and now we see him going under the alias of Cal, and he's really living the high life now where he's going to nightclubs, mixing in with lots of hot girls, and he's stealing money, and we see him attacking bank robbers, evading the police. This is also very notable because we had the first appearance of Morgan Edge, who was played by legendary actor Rutger Hauer, and he done very well in his performance as well. We also catch up with Lex, who is stranded on an island, and he's going through very much of paranoid delusions. It's, to be honest, it's a bit of an outlandish story beat, but I think it's pulled off very well because Michael Rosenbaum is excellent throughout. So we also had the other development, of course, where Helen turns up at Lex's funeral. So again, we're getting much more hints of her duplicitous nature as well. We see Lana, she goes to find Clark, who catches up with her later, but he drives her off and they're in the nightclub together. And again, this furthers the on-off relationship between the two when Clark is having these other effects on him. And then we get that great development at the end where we see Jonathan fusing with Jor-El and he goes to confront Clark, and we get that amazing scene where they fight together and they smash through the window, and we get that cliffhanger and a really promising start to one of the best seasons throughout the series. We go on to the next episode, and that is Shattered, and this is from season 3 episode 8, and we start off with the episode where we see the return of Morgan Edge, who is now undergoing plastic surgery following the perceived double cross by Lionel at the end of the opening episodes of season 3. And Lex turns up and he tries to bargain with Morgan Edge because Lex has suspected for a while that Lionel was responsible for the death of his grandparents in order to retain property. So Lex is trying to gather evidence against that. Morgan gives him a confession about what happened. Lex goes to find the evidence, but then he finds himself attacked in his mansion. He goes to seek refuge with Clark, who stands by him, but Lionel goes under pretense that Lex is suffering a psychotic break. So there's this search for Lex, and overall we see Lex further falling apart as he believes he's seen things that aren't there. He's going through these various different paranoid delusions, and this is a magnificent performance from Michael Rosenbaum because it really shows again how adept he was at adding multi-layers to Lex as a character. We then get another scene where we see Clark catching up with Morgan Edge as he feels Lex is in trouble, and Morgan Edge conveniently has some meteor rock around him because he knows that's Clark's weakness, and he keeps that on him in preparation. So Lex catches up with Morgan Edge and he has a shootout with him near the end, and it's a great sequence that we get when Morgan Edge is driving towards Lex. Lex shoots at him in the window, and as the car is careering towards Lex, Clark super speeds in and steps in and protects Lex, and Lex sees Clark's true powers, and of course he now knows what Clark's secret is, but because following people think he's having paranoid delusions, the police come and take Lex away, and he's under the pretense that he's going crazy. And we find out, of course, throughout this episode that he has been drugged by Lionel into thinking this. So this is a fantastic episode, and I think this episode is very famous because it has one of the most iconic scenes of the whole series, where we get the closing development with Lex, and we see him in a straitjacket, and he's looking completely tormented and lost, and he looks in the cell at Lionel, and then we get the Johnny Cash song Hurt playing in the background. It's a very shocking motivation at the time when you watch this episode. Magnificent performance from Michael Rosenbaum, fantastic episode. We go on to the next episode, and that is Legacy, and this is from season 3 episode 17, and this is continuing the arc where we delve into the issue of the Kawachi caves and the Kryptonian symbols, and everybody from Clark, Lionel and Lex is continuing to find out what they mean and get to the origins of the symbols. And we have here now where the FBI, they raid Clark's house, and we learn later on that this is instigated by Lionel. We also know that Jonathan is being affected by his early interaction with Joel, and with Lionel now is considering suicide because due to his dying condition. And we have a great scene as well when Lionel goes to meet up with Virgil Swan, as we all know is played by Christopher Reeve. Lionel wants to bargain with Virgil Swan if he can help him decipher the Kryptonian symbols and find the key, the very much sought after key to unlocking these symbols, then he will hand over the Kawachi cave location to him. So I love the scene between Donald Glover and Christopher Reeve, of course, so it's a great scene. And then we get a fantastic scene, as I mentioned, between Lex and Lana, questioning her relationship, and I love the music in this scene. If anybody can tell me what it is, it's great, but I love the musical scene between the two. And then we get a final climatic scene at the end where we see Jonathan and Lionel fighting together. The symbol within the cave closes, and we get great visual effects as they're continually fighting on here, and it disappears within the cave, and they're wondering where it's disappeared to. So overall, it's a great episode. I think this is one of the best episodes of season 3. We go on to the next episode, and that is Salvation, and this is from season 9 episode 21, and this is the thrilling conclusion of season 9, and we're finalising the story arc of Zod and his growing army of Kandorians, and we're dealing with a device of the Book of Ra that can transport them to another planet, including Clark. So we're really now seeing a unison with Clark and Chloe and Oliver as they want to battle against Zod. We get a surprising revelation where we see that Tess has somehow managed to infiltrate the fortress, and she confronts Zod, and they're battling together, and she seems to get the upper hand when she uses Kryptonian stones, but then Zod regains the initiative, and we get quite a gruesome scene where Zod zaps her with the heat vision, and then we see Clark later on find Tess, and we see half her face is burned. So it's quite a horrific scarring injury that she has, and at the time that I felt this was going to be Tess meeting her death, that wasn't necessarily the case. And we get great visual shots as we see the Kandorians destroying different landmarks all over the world, really showing an indication of the growing army of them. Oliver is infiltrating one of the Luthor bases, and with Chloe's help, all of a sudden we see him coming under attack, but it's not Kryptonian. So again, along with this and the scene that we got in hospital where we see a granny knitting as she goes to visit Tess in the hospital. This is where they're dropping hints now of Darkseid and Apocalypse. All the comic book fans who know the Superman mythology, they were getting very excited, I can remember at the time, of the various hints throughout this episode. And this all culminates in an incredible confrontation between Clark and Zod as the Kandorians are transported away, and we get a hand-to-hand fight because Zod is using the blue dagger, which means he didn't get transported, and it's a fantastic fight sequence, one of the best of the entire series. We get these amazing slow motion shots between Clark and Zod as they're punching each other and using uppercuts and smashing each other through the window. It's a thrilling battle, very excitingly staged, and we get that amazing cliffhanger moment at the end when Clark stabs himself. This orderly means now that Zod gets zapped away into the other planet, and Clark falls away off the building, and he falls down in very much of a Christ-like position, and then the episode cuts off. So it's a thrilling conclusion to, I believe, again, one of the best seasons of the series. Another great cliffhanger to one of the best series finales of the series. We go on to the next episode now, and that is Rosetta, and this is from season 2 episode 17, and this is an amazing episode, and this concentrates once again on the Kawachi caves and the fascinations with the Kryptonian key. As we all know, it's going to play a crucial part and has a huge connection with the ship that remains in the barn. And Clark has continued visions of this, and we also get the subplot of Lex and Lionel continually battling over control of the caves. Clark puts the key in the caves and it transmits this energy through. We get a great visual shot as we see the energy beam transmitting through his body, and he's constantly hearing noises, and we get great visual shots where when he burns Kryptonian signals into the barn. Chloe shows up just afterwards, and Clark is now really anxious to find out about this because it's having a continued effects on him and his family. He receives emails from a person known as Virgil Swan, wants to get in contact with Clark and find out more information about him. We know that Dr. Walden is now trying the same as Clark when he wants to investigate the Kawachi caves. He puts the key into the caves and he ends up being put into the coma. And this is one of the most standout and very much anticipated episodes of the entire series so far, because of course it marked the first appearance of Christopher Reeve as Virgil Swan. I'm sure you all know Christopher Reeve now, for me still the benchmark of a Superman interpretation, and we get a magnificent engrossing scene between Clark and Virgil Swan where we delve more into Clark's origins and the Kryptonian signals and what they mean. And what I love about this episode so much, of course, it integrates the famous tones of the Superman score from John Williams, and it's fantastic to watch. And this episode also concludes on a great scene, I think, between Clark and Jonathan, as Clark puts the key into the ship and he's reading more the message, and it indicates that he was sent here to conquer, but they are determined to get past those and make sure that Clark can go on his own path. And we get a magnificent embrace between both Jonathan and Clark, and we get the Superman theme playing again. So just a magnificent episode, magnificent to see Christopher Reeve. This was of course when he was in his wheelchair, so much more testament to him that he was still able to provide a compelling performance. So an amazing episode and a standout one for season 2. We go on to the next episode, and that is Memoria, and this is from season 3 episode 19, and this is for me one of the most stunning, outstanding, incredible episodes of the entire series. Here we see the culmination of the story arc of Lex and his battling with his inner demons, and we learn later on that he's going to the Summerholt facility where he's using the technology because he wants to reclaim the lost memories that he had from the last 7 weeks. And going through the season, you know that this will include him discovering Clark's secret. When we get this passage of sequences here, we get amazing flashbacks. We get this amazing scenes where we see Lex at his first birthday party and nobody turning up. These are really heartfelt scenes that once again made you really empathise and sympathise with Lex as a character. The performances by Michael Rosenbaum and Donald Glover are just incredible throughout on here, and this is really where the synergy throughout is incredible. The music, the cinematography, the way that the scenes seemingly transition into one another, and we get a further development, of course, when Clark visits Summerholt because he's concerned about Lex. This is a trap, of course, and they manage to apprehend Clark, and then we get the memories that he has when we see that the first time where we see the parents putting young Clark into the Kryptonian ship. We all know this is, of course, this is the origin of the Superman story, that they put him in a ship prior to the destruction of Krypton, and we tap into Clark's memories, and the first memory he had was of his mother's name, Lara. And we see him screaming that as he's in the green liquid of the experimentation of Summerholt. Lex goes back to Summerholt, and we get the explosions because Clark's reactions really set off an explosion within the experimentation. Lex goes down and he rescues Clark, and after this development we get 4 of magnificent scenes. The first where we see Clark and Lex reflecting together on Lex's relationship with Lionel, and we transition back to the flashback where we get the harrowing development where we learn that initially it was indicated that maybe Lex had killed Julian in his sleep, but it wasn't. The shocking revelation is that it was Lex's mother who killed Julian in his sleep, and this is because she knew the ruthlessness of Lionel's parenting, and she didn't want to see Julian subjected to the same treatment that Lex was. It's a truly shocking and harrowing scene. We further on to the next scene where we get another confrontation to Lionel and Lex, when Lex finally reveals that most of his memories have come back, and he tells Lionel that it wasn't indeed him that killed Julian, but it was indeed his mother. And the reaction that we see from Lionel coming to the truth, realizing that this secret has really overall affected his relationship with Lex, and he admits that if he had known about this, then maybe their relationship would have been different, and he tries to embrace Lex, but Lex walks away. I cannot emphasize enough how incredible the acting is between both Donald Glover and Michael Rosenbaum. I really think that they deserved at least an Emmy nomination for their performances. And then we get the final concluding scene where we see Clark reflecting on his memories with Martha, and we get the song by Evanescence. It's a very sweet-natured song at the end. It's just a fantastic episode, one of the most standout episodes of the entire series, once again showing how much Smallville could work on an emotional level between its characters. An incredible episode, one of the best of the entire series. We move on to the next episode, and that is called Justice, and this is from season 6 episode 11, a very much of a massive fan favourite episode. We start off where we see the return of Bart from season 4. As we all know, this is kind of Smallville's interpretation of the Flash, and we learn that he's part of a team infiltrating Luthor Corp locations, trying to find out more information about the 33.1. This team includes Oliver's Green Arrow, Aquaman, and of course Cyborg. And we later on get a great introduction where we see the team coming together at Oliver's location, and I love the little one-liners and camaraderie between the 4 people within the scene. And of course the reason why we all love this episode, because this is very much a Justice League light. You know, this is Smallville's way of kind of sowing the seeds of the eventual teaming up of all superheroes within the Justice League, and it's a fantastic episode. It's really got these great comic book-esque moments where we see the team working together. We get these great sequences where we see Aquaman and Cyborg infiltrating the bases. We see Chloe working with them as well now. She's kind of the Watchtower, that's her code name, and we see other code names such as Impulse, and they give Clark the code name Boy Scout, of course. And great action, well staged. I love the music and the editing throughout, and of course this concludes with one of the most iconic scenes again of the entire series, where we get that slow motion walk of the entire team walking out as they detonate and explode the 33.1 location. It's iconic, it's very special, and like I said, this is one of the most favourite episodes I think amongst all Smallville fans. fantastic episode, really one of the standout ones of season 6. Amazing comic book action and interpretations by all involved. We move on again to one of the most outstanding and most exhilarating episodes of the entire series, and that is Phantom, and that is season 6, episode 22. And this is concluding the ongoing Zona story arc that has been going on throughout all of the season. John Jones gets really brutally injured when the Zona pulls out his intestines. There's quite gruesome stuff on here. He escapes, and then later on Lex and his troops try to corner the Zona, who escapes from the mansion. So it's a very intense and opening sequence. We get further developments, of course, where we finally see the separation between Lex and Lana. We know, of course, that Lana has discovered what Lex was doing to her in terms of her pregnancy. We also see that Martha is finally departing the farm for her senator duty. So at the time, it's the final appearance from Annette O'Toole. And this is a very integral episode as well, because this is now where we see Clark finally revealing his secret to Lana. It's a bit, I think, undercut, because we know, of course, that Lana had already discovered Clark's secret in the episode Promise. So it's still a very emotional scene between the two. Lana reveals to Clark that she was threatened by Lionel. So this, of course, enrages Clark. He locates Lionel and he threatens him, but Martian stops him because they realise now that the Zona is very much a threat, and that Lionel has now been an emissary for Joel. We get a further development where Lana reveals that she's going to leave Lex. Lionel tries to catch up with her. She gets caught in the exploding fan. I think, to be honest, we all knew that Lana was going to survive. Lionel texts Clark what happens. Clark's enraged. He rushes over to the underground lab, threatens Lex at the time, and then he comes across the Phantom. We get that great sequence where the Phantom rushes towards Clark and Clark uses that S-shield to fend him off. We get a further subplot where we see Lois is fatally stabbed coming across a soldier when she's investigating. Chloe finds her, and then we get that stunning revelation where we see that Chloe has a healing power. We see she cries and her tear integrates Lois and it heals her. We get that amazing confrontation between Clark and the Phantom, who has now created a doppelganger of Clark. Amazing fight sequence between the two. Lionel tries to use kryptonite on this doppelganger, but it only powers him up, it doesn't weaken him. And then we get that incredible thrilling finish where we see the good Clark and the evil Clark facing off. He utters that iconic line, "I am like you, only a bit more bizarre." This is, of course, is a tip to one of the most famous Superman villains in Bizarro. They rush towards each other. That incredible slow motion shot when they're running towards together, and we see the flashing lights between the two, slow motion. It's fantastic to watch. Massive explosion, and we see Clark being flung through the air, and as we see that, the dark Clark is zooming through the sky. We get all this thrilling music, and we see his face turn chalky white, crystallized, just like Bizarro. It's exciting, it's exhilarating, it's spectacular, one of the best finales of the entire series. We now move on to the final episode within this breakdown, and what may be perhaps the most epic, biggest and most spectacular episode of the entire series, and that is Commencement. This is from season 4, episode 22. This is the finale, of course, of this particular season, and this is where we really concentrate on the final arc of the Kryptonian stones that everybody has been chasing after. We get an opening scene when Lana murders Jennifer Teague under the influence of the spells that we've been talking about Lana throughout this whole entire season. She's very guilt-ridden about what happens. She goes and sees Lex and helps her cover it up. She tells Lex that she has one of the Kryptonian stones. Lex is anxious, of course, to obtain this, but he doesn't want to overwhelm Lana with it, and we all know this is the stage where he's developing feelings towards her. We get the further development, of course, that this is the graduation day, and of course the major development here is that we were getting the pending meteor shower, and this episode does these intercut scenes where it's giving us the countdown to when the meteor shower is going to hit. We see Jason Teague showing up from his injuries in previous episodes, and he wants to find Clark, and he captures Martha and Jonathan just as they're about to leave the house along with everybody else. He wants to evacuate the area, and we get a really intense fight sequence between the two, and then all hell breaks loose when the meteor shower hits, and this affects everybody around. And it is really one of the most spectacular sequences that we saw within Smallville, as the meteor shower attacks Smallville from all sides, all different directions. It's truly thrilling, truly exciting to watch, as we see everybody coming under the effects of this meteor shower. We get great visual shots, and this includes the great sequence where we see the young child and he's watching the meteors going to attack him, and then Clark rushes in and shields him away from the explosion. Fantastic. We later on see that Clark has gone to obtain the final stone that emerged from Lionel when Clark put 2 of the stones into the Kawachi caves. He comes under the meteor rock, Chloe saves him, and he attains the final stones, and he goes back to the Kawachi caves to put the stones in, and we see all of this lighting and visual effects as we see Clark step into the cave entrance. We get another fantastic scene where we see Lois looking into the distance as she sees all of Smallville engulfed in the meteor showers. We get another amazing scene where we see Lana coming out of the helicopter. It's a thrilling sequence where we see the helicopter trying to evade all the meteors, and of course we then get the thrilling conclusion at the end when Clark has managed to assemble all of the Kryptones together. They form one crystal. He forms it together. He finds himself in a snow-laden landscape. The crystal points to a certain location. He picks it up. He throws it into the distance. We get the Superman classical theme from John Williams playing in the background as the crystal zooms towards us, and we all know what this means because this indicates the discovery of the Fortress of Solitude. It's an incredible episode, an incredible cliffhanger. It must be surely the most spectacular finale. For me, perhaps the most epic episode of the entire series. An amazing finale for season 4, and getting you hugely excited for season 5 with that incredible cliffhanger at the end. So those are my overall thoughts on my final breakdown of what I believe to be the best episodes of Smallville. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If there are any episodes that you believe I've missed in this breakdown, let me know, and I will do individual episodes and provide them on the channel. Thank you very much for tuning in to these extensive breakdowns, and I will continue to provide more breakdowns off lists of my favourite shows in the near coming future. So that's it for now. Take care of yourselves on the final concluding part of my breakdown on what I believe the best episodes of an amazing series in Smallville. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.